Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the caucus meeting to order. The Pledge of Allegiance will be done by Council Member Brian Flewelling. Would you all rise for the pledge?
You will say it with me?
Yes.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Public notice of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. Attendance is, since this is a hybrid meeting, we do have members in council, and we do have 2 members that are online at this point in time. The one council member that is missing right now is Council Member McKellen. He wasn't sure if he would be able to join us for the caucus meeting. He hopes to be here for the regular council meeting. So we do have enough members to conduct the business of council. I would ask a member of council to make a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Rodman. Second? Mr. Glover. Duly motioned and seconded. Any objections to approving the agenda as stated? Seeing no objections, the agenda is approved. Next item will be the review of the council committee agenda. First of all, I would like to go to the consent agenda. You can see that we do have several items from various committees. When we are in public, I would ask that the chairs of each of those committees not have to go over in its entirety what is on the agenda, but to summarize that these items were in fact discussed at their particular committee meeting, and you can see by the votes what came out of the committee meeting, and we'll move on from there. So is there any question from any committee member or council member on the consent agenda as it is stated? Seeing none, then the consent agenda should be able to be approved. Is there any questions or concerns that anyone has on any of the items that are on the regular agenda?
Mr. Chairman, this is
Mr.
Councilman
Dawson, go ahead.
Yeah, I have an issue with item number 13 on the regular agenda. This is the resolution, public hearing resolution for the conservation easement on property in the Dale community. I'm going to vote against that, so I just want to go on record as not supporting it.
Okay. Very good. Any other comments about that one?
If I might, Mr. Chairman, I'd be interested. Gerald, are you going to speak to that matter at the county council meeting? To tell us why you're going to be voting against it?
That is correct.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. I just didn't want that to happen without you having a chance to fully voice your concern.
Okay. Are there other comments about agenda items? Because there is a concern about one other item that is on the agenda. And that has to do with the ATAX item that is on the agenda. Does anybody need some additional information, or we'll take that up when it happens?
I'll take it up when it happens. From
Okay, very good. Okay. Is there any other committee reports that will need to be done at the council meeting? Okay, this could be very easy. We are then going to go into executive session. So I will need yes, sir?
I'm sorry, I missed it. Could I touch on one item quickly on the council member discussion?
Yes.
This has to do with the section of road on 170 from 278 to 462. And as you remember, a couple months ago when we learned how what bad shape that was in, we stepped out and we're doing the designs underway on fixing that. And we agreed to put up $1.5 million to get that done. And then we've asked Jasper, and we have a tentative agreement, but it still has to go through their council, and they're putting up $1 million. Those two would cover what we anticipate to be the full construction. We're also having discussion with Hardyville with some sense that they may come in for something. The reason for mentioning this is that if in fact Jasper did not come in, it's highly unlikely that they wouldn't at this point in time, we would only have the $1.5 million that we would have. And I don't anticipate that happening. However, it would be useful to essentially say to DOT when we're talking to them that in the unlikely event that they didn't come in, we would still push our $1.5 million to the intersection at 278 and 170, because that's the area that's the worst section that needs the most help. And that would do three things for us. One, as I said, that's the worst intersection. Number two, DOT is going to be resurfacing next year at that intersection, and there's an agreement, still has to go before the commission in order for us to do it and then be reimbursed. And lastly, on the Graves property, Pepper Hall, that particular intersection is tied to the release of the last of the building permits that he needs. So whatever we do money-wise would have to come back to us for approval, but unless there was an objection, I'd like to be in a position where we can essentially be saying to DOT, and Jared and I have talked about this and we're in agreement, that if worst case, an unlikely case, we would in fact proceed and spend our money on the worst intersection first. So since we approved it in general, I just wanted to make sure if anybody disagreed with that approach, let me know, because I don't want to speak for council, but I think it's something that is probably just logical in the unlikely event that happens, Mr. Chairman. So if anybody has a disagreement, let me know.
Not a disagreement, but there are 3 intersections right there that are very troublesome.
Yeah, we're going to get them all done.
170.
Well, in fact, the other discussion that Jared and I have been having is that section of road lends itself to us actually stepping into the next level of design. And it's essentially the worst section. It includes a lot of stuff with Jasper and Hardyville. And to the extent that we're getting the design underway for even the whole road, it positions us as some of this federal infrastructure money is coming down to be shovel ready, and also argue with suggest to the state infrastructure bank that would be a great way to spend it. So I think it's our first priority, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yeah.
So
No
we'll
question.
keep pushing it.
Absolutely. Any other comments before we go into executive session?
Can I just comment on that one
Yep.
second? I'm 100% with you on it. I think it makes sense. I just think one area that we have to focus on and get done is that intersection where Ashley Furniture comes out. I know where people turn left and that one lane keeps going while the other one's backed up to turn
Is that one
on.
of the ones on 170?
It's on the 170.
I'll have to look and see where it
That
is.
one, to me, I have seen at least 4 or 5 wrecks there personally. I think that has to be, if we do get put in that situation where we have to address that area.
Yeah, one of the things I'll tell council real quick is that we don't want to do anything here. The town of Hardyville is revamping the development agreement and the PDD for that area where that traffic is coming out. And so far, they have not required the developer of that property to handle the traffic that he's creating and the problems he's creating. I have a meeting with them on Thursday morning to actually say, hey, it's time now for you all to start implementing the traffic study requirements in this development agreement and start requiring this developer to step up and do some improvements to the infrastructure problems that he's causing. So I want y'all to be aware of that. We don't want to take responsibility for our problems and Jasper and Hardyville's problems as well.
Understood. Okay. I would like a member of council to make a motion to go into executive session. Mr. Rodman makes the motion. A second, please.
Second.
Ms. Howard makes the second pursuant to South Carolina Code, Section 30-478-2, receipt of legal advice, where legal advice relates to a pending, threatened, or potential claim or other matters covered by the attorney-client privilege. The three items that we will be discussing in executive session will be the Hilton Head Island litigation, auditor litigation, and possible Dale PDR transaction. Without objection, we will be going into executive session, and I see no objections. So we're going into executive session at 5:11 p.m. We are still in the county caucus meeting. We've come out of executive session. We've discussed items in the executive session, one of which will be taken up in the county council meeting. So at this point in time, we're going to adjourn the caucus meeting and give us about 5 minutes to change everything around, and we will begin the county regular meeting. So the caucus meeting is now adjourned.
So it's time for potty breaks, right?
Yes.
Got it, all right.
Good evening, everyone. This is the County Council meeting of Monday, September 27th. I would like to call that to order. The Pledge of Allegiance will be handled by Councilman Flewelling, and would you all remain standing after that for the invocation? Mr. Flewelling.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic that stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please bow your heads. Heavenly Father, in times of trouble, we search for you. We seek answers to our problems. We seek comfort, and we seek relief. We find our relief in your tender mercy, comfort in your loving embrace, and answers to our questions in humble submission to your will while we're bearing witness to your almighty power. Father, we thank you for all the gifts you've given us, but especially for relief from the recent pandemic. We pray for our brothers and sisters who've been affected, who've lost loved ones, who are sick or afraid tonight. We ask that you relieve their suffering and heal them, Father. Father, please bless this assembly. We ask that you guide us in doing your will and lead us safely home. We ask all this through your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the County Council meeting. If you have never been to a County Council meeting before, we are in a hybrid meeting, which means we do not have all 11 members of County Council in the chambers this evening. As you will see, we are missing 3 council members who are online. That is Council Member Dawson, Council Member Flewelling, and Council Member McKellen are all online. You will be able to see them on screen. All other members are here, so we do have everyone to conduct the business of County Council. Public notice of this meeting has been published, posted, and distributed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. I would ask a member of council to make a motion to approve our agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded by Mr. Rodman and Mr. Somerville did the motion, and Mr. Rodman was the second. Any objections to approval of the agenda? I see no objections, so the agenda has been approved. We will now turn over to our administrator, Mr. Greenway, for his report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just one statement. I do not buy for myself a mask and ties that match. This was a gift, so I just wanted to make that clear.
I thought it looked very dapper.
Anyway, I do get a lot of comments and compliments on it from certain people. The first item I have tonight, I'm going to tell you a story about the Association of Counties meeting down in Hilton Head back in August. I was there one morning getting ready for a session, and I heard a familiar voice from up above my head, and I was like, had to listen for a few moments. I was puzzled, and then I recognized the voice as Scott Groom's. And I was like, I should not be hearing Scott Groom's voice coming down from above. So that's my first item tonight, is a thank you letter from the Association of Counties to Scott Grooms and his team for doing the videoing and live streaming of the Institute classes, the opening and general sessions, and the annual awards announcements during the banquet at this past SCAC conference. As you all know, that's an award-winning group of folks there. They work tirelessly. They're here many evenings covering meetings when the rest of us are at home. And I want to thank Scott, Alec, and all the others that I saw down there in Hilton Head during that annual conference for the great job and the hard work that they put in. My only other item tonight is to continue with what I customarily do, and that's recognizing employees. Our first employee tonight is joining us via Zoom. She works in our solid waste and recycling. You have probably seen her. I don't know if you've ever talked to her or not, but you've probably seen her in several meetings. Carolyn Joran Dolby. She's a volunteer coordinator. She began work with us part-time on May 2nd of 2016. Carolyn has grown the Adoptive Highway Program of volunteers from 50 active groups to 110 active groups today. I know that will make Councilmember Somerville very happy. That's been kind of one of the things that he's focused on during his time on council. Volunteer groups pick up 2 miles of county roadway litter each quarter. Caroline supports each group with supplies and safety equipment and coordinates with volunteers when the county mowing schedule is released. She serves as a liaison with South Carolina DOT for bag removal, Palmetto Pride for program updates and conferences, and interacts with our Beaufort County litter crew to constantly work with keeping our roadways beautiful. The department receives continuous positive feedback for the way Caroline supports each volunteer group. She formed a task force of volunteers to develop ideas to make things better in Beaufort County. Annually, she hosts an Adopt a Highway meeting and publishes a newsletter for volunteers. Something unique about her to share is she grew up as an equestrian rider and jumper. I think that's very interesting. Today, she is an avid runner who loves living on Hilton Head and spending time on the beach. So, Caroline, I don't know if we can see you or not. I'm gonna offer you a chance to say a few words if you're comfortable doing that. So you might want to unmute yourself, and if you want to say anything, that's fine. If you don't, that's fine as well. While she's doing that, let's give Caroline a round of applause for what. Caroline, is there anything you would like to say?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can now, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'd really like to give the credit to the, wonderful, dedicated volunteers that I work with. Also, I really appreciate my supervisor, Cindy Carter. Her hard work ethic just keeps me on my toes. And most of all, I'd like to thank the Lord for prospering me in this work. And so I thank you for honoring me.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for being here this evening. Our second individual tonight has been with us for 32 and a half years, and she stands here beside me. She is with our Register of Deeds Department. Her name is Shirley Smith. She is the Deputy Registrar and currently the interim for filling in for Dale Butts' vacancy since he moved up in our organization recently. She does a wonderful job. She serves as office manager, operations director, customer service specialist, and she is a native of Beaufort and attended school on the same property where she has been employed for so many years. She has also worked under 4 different Register of Deeds and is still going strong. So thank you for your service. We're going to do a round of applause for you, and I'm going to ask you if you want to say
I was ready to say, but I just thank God how He allowed me to work for Beaufort County and for the taxpayers of Beaufort County. It's been a pleasure. I mean, sometimes there was little problems, but it was a pleasure for 32 years to work for Beaufort County, and I thank you.
thank you.
If I might, Eric. Shirley, turn around. I gotta ask you a question, Shirley.
Shirley, Councilmember Flewelling wants to say something to you.
No, Mr. Flewelling.
Well, I think that's probably the first time you've ever called me Mr. Flewelling. I've known you so long, Shirley, and I want to just add my thanks for all that you've done for Beaufort County. I've seen you work every day under very strenuous circumstances and difficult circumstances, and you always get the job done. But I have a question for you, dear.
Okay.
Who's your favorite Register of Deeds?
I got an answer for you. Catch me in about 10 years, I'll let you know.
Again.
Tonight, our third employee this evening is from our Business Services Department. She is not with us this evening. We do have a picture of her Her name is Brandy Hussman. She's a revenue collector. She's been with us about 2.5 years. I'll tell a funny story about Brandy. I was planning director when she first came here, and you all know that I'll joke around with Carolyn a little bit, who also works in business services. I told Carolyn that she wouldn't be up there more than 6 months working along beside Carolyn before Carolyn ran her off. But she's lasted 2.5 years, so that's a good thing for Brandy. She's a frontline, backline, and all in between employee. She is eager to learn all, willing to be there whenever and wherever she's needed. She does a lot of things for business services up there. Brandy has a heart of gold. She, according to business services, is their sleuth that will turn over all rocks to find non-complying businesses, and she helps complete the business license team. So let's give Brandy a round of applause for her. You all have heard the next person's name many times. I don't know how many of you have actually been introduced to her in person. Person that I've spent a lot of time with since I came here in 2018. And I have to tell you, we turned into quite a fine and formidable team, she and I, in planning and zoning. This is Ms. Hillary Austin. She is the Zoning and Development Administrator. She's been with us 26 years. She directs the plan, she administers and enforces the Community Development Code, analyzes projects submitted by developers, engineers, and attorneys to ensure they are in compliance with code. She runs the staff review team. She coordinates and is the liaison to the Zoning Board of Appeals. She also supervises the frontline people known as zoning analysts to ensure that they are performing their duties in accordance with the Community Development Code and other things regarding planning as well. So she does an excellent job. One of the things I did not know, and I've worked with her 3 years now, she is a member of the South Carolina Volunteer Guardian Ad Litem program. This agency works on behalf of children who are victims of neglect, abuse, or any action on the part of their parents or are placed in foster homes. She believes that all children who are our most precious commodities should be protected and have a voice in the courts. She has a bachelor's degree from USCB and received 3 master's degrees, all while working, taking care of her daughter, and doing this volunteer work. Hillary, I want to say, whenever we work close together, it's kind of a little bit more emotional for me, but I want to say that I've enjoyed my time with you working closely. Even though my role's changed now, I will always value the day-to-day experience I had with you. So thank you very much. Let's give her a round of applause.
Just want to say thanks, and it's been a pleasure serving the people of Beaufort County. Sometimes hard, but it's been fun. Most of the time.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the 2021 CASHVEST National Leadership Award presentation. And this is going to be presented this evening to Maria Walls, who is the Beaufort County Treasurer. Maria, would you come forward? Good evening, sir.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, and to all of you, thank you. First of all, I'm Joe Rulison, CEO of 3+1, and our CashVest platform is a liquidity management system that is used by counties throughout the country with a strong partnership with the National Association of Counties. And with me, joining me is Bill Jason, the chairman of the National Association of Counties Financial Services Corporation. I have to tell you, this is a very, very unique award. It is given to one person nationally that demonstrates the highest of integrity, highest of financial management of taxpayer money, putting every dime to work that is possible. And I have to tell you, your treasurer is outstanding, not just here, but I'm telling you nationally, and is followed nationally with the best practices, and she is called literally by counties and other communities throughout the country to see how does she do what she does. And on behalf of all of you, we cannot thank you enough, because as a result of this work with Treasurer Walls, this county has seen $15 million more over the last 4 years that never would have been recognized had it not been for this platform. To have these standards and to know that you have been a pace setter throughout the country with Maria's outstanding leadership and the practices of liquidity management is just amazing. And Bill, if you have a few words.
I would love so. Thank you. Thank you, Joe. And Maria, first of all, congratulations. I just wanted to say thank you to the council. Mr. Chairman, thank you for having us this evening. Thank you for putting us on the agenda. Thank you for the great work you all do in this fine community. Thank you for your support of the South Carolina Association and of the National Association. I have the great privilege of just moving to your fine county from the Washington, D.C. area, and I do have the honor of serving as the chairman of the National Association of Counties Financial Services Corporation. We're privileged to partner with the 3+1 Corporation, which does a remarkable job of optimizing cash management. Maria is the adopter of this great solution, and as a result, you just heard Joe talk about the $15 million that yielded for you as a county. So as a taxpayer, I'm thrilled with the sound management of those funds, and just want to say again, thank you for your leadership. Maria, congratulations to you, and we just can't recognize you enough for your innovative leadership, your thought leadership, and for helping to bring others along as they try to figure out the very difficult task of cash management. So thank you for being such an effective national leader and local leader. Thank you again.
Great. And it's with great honor that I present Treasurer Maria Walls with the 2021 CASHVEST National Leadership Award. Maria.
Thank you both so much. You know, you came to me with an idea and I had a problem. And so often when we're able to openly share what our ideas and our problems are, we end up finding someone who has just the right solution and has just the right amount of open-mindedness to make it even better than the day we started. And I do really also need to thank my team, because none of us are investors by trade. We took a platform, we took a procedure, we systematized it, and we made it great. And I don't do any of this alone. They literally help me every single day. And that also includes our finance department and the finance departments of all the agencies in the county. You might not realize it, but they all share cash flow information with me so that we can make sure that when they need $1, we have $1. And when it's not needed, it's put to work and it's earning money for the citizens of Beaufort County. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you again.
Okay, we're at the citizens' comment section. Anyone who wishes to speak during the citizens' portion is given an opportunity for 3 minutes to address anything that is on the agenda or that's on their mind. We ask that you do it in a calm, cool, and collected manner. You are speaking to the chairman of county council. So it's as if you and I are having a conversation. Tonight, we have 23 people who wish to speak, and we have 15 minutes allotted for you to speak in. Many of you wish to speak on the same topic, so I'm going to ask you to be very brief during this time so that we can address what you want to say. We're going to begin with the individuals who want to speak on the agenda item number 13, which is one of the things that we discussed in our executive session. So, Mr. Trail, would you approach first?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, council. Out of respect for everybody's time, I'll try to be as brief as possible so that everybody gets to talk tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is David Trail, and I'm the Director for Government and External Relations for Marine Corps Air Station Beaufort. I'm here to express and reaffirm the importance for the military of the proposed Dale Purchase of Development Rights project. The air station has enjoyed a partnership with Beaufort County for almost 20 years, combining our efforts and resources to protect land for the value of conservation while also preserving the military training mission. Together, we've invested over $60 million for projects that benefit our community, support conservation, and also enhance the resilience of the military installation of Beaufort County as a whole. The Oak Point property is one of the largest remaining unprotected threats for incompatible development in our primary flight space, as it is located off the north end of the runway and is within the air installation compatible use zone noise contours. Our Marine Corps and Department of Defense leadership has prioritized this project over hundreds of other proposals. Co-holding this easement as partners over this valuable property further accomplishes our shared goals of protecting land for its inherent ecological value and making our military installation and community more resilient by conserving land over which our pilots can safely and more fully carry out training activities necessary to prepare them for real-life combat. MCAS Beaufort is and wants to remain a part of this community. We are eager to foster our relationship with Beaufort County and our valuable partnership that continues to find ways to protect our shared interests and needs to preserve and enrich the Low Country for as long as we get to call it home. Thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Trail. Next, Mr. McShane, do you have anything to add to that?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Very briefly, I'll add is Mike McShane, resident of Charleston County with real estate interest in Beaufort County, also serving as chairman of the South Carolina State Conservation Bank. Reiterate that your administrator and council members made a point about public access. I'm committed to work through not only supporting this project, but work with your county staff and your contractor toward coming back within 12 months with a public access project with the bank, being a participant in that. As an illustration, the bank met last Wednesday. We awarded over $12 million for 17,000 acres, of which 5,000 are in the regional complex of Colleton and Jasper counties. A lot of that is great credit to what Beaufort County has done because we saw the regional connection there. And that out of that, 2/3 of that acres were public access, 1/3 were on private lands. It's a public benefit as well as a public access. We look for that balance. I look forward to working with council and staff on bringing another project forward. The Ace Basin Task Force and the bank both heartily endorse the support of this particular project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Trask.
Thank you all, sir. I'm John Trask. I sent y'all an email just about the RV park that's coming up at second reading tonight, and Rob can weigh in on this, but there's a provision in there that RVs can only stay 30 days during any 60-day period. I think that's a little bit too short considering, you know, what people actually do, and respectfully ask that you let staff study it or y'all approve it to change that 30 days to a 60-day stay in any 90-day period. So nothing too major, but something that I think is a little bit more workable for the tenant. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, The remaining time is allotted to individuals who want to talk about item number 14. Is there anyone else in the chambers this evening that wants to talk about any other item? Okay. Again, we only have a 15-minute time limit. We've already used up 7 of those minutes. Is there someone who wishes to be the spokesperson who can address this issue on behalf of everyone? If not, I will just call the roll, and when we get to the 15 minutes, we will stop and then allow you to come back at the second time. Yes, ma'am.
They're motioning me to speak first.
Okay.
My name is Cynthia Jenkins. I'm Executive Director of the Historic Beaufort Foundation. And first of all, I'd like to thank you for allowing us this opportunity. And to also state that HBF is in full agreement that the Mckees Smalls House is one of the most important architectural and historic properties in the city. And it is individually listed as a National Historic Landmark in a National Historic Landmark District. That is a very rare and unusual designation. It's the highest honor that can be bestowed. There are only 4 National Landmark Districts in the state. The city of Beaufort and Penn Center are 2 of those. So we take it very seriously in protecting the character of our community. The Mckees Smalls House is under easement. It was placed on the house in 2002 by an owner. It gives Historic Beaufort Foundation certain rights in protecting the property in perpetuity. The easement runs with the deed. Among those restrictions are use as a single-family residence, no subdividing, and also we protect the exterior as far as additions and things like that. In July, we received a letter from Mr. Kaiserling and the National Trust for Historic Preservation.
The County Council.
Keep going. You're fine.
Yeah, she came back this weekend.
We received a letter asking that we transfer our easement to the National Trust. Our Board of Trustees has no intention of doing that. We hold 32 easements on the property. So when you're told that it's not protected, that there's no preservation, the only hope is to follow the course that's presented as turning it over to the National Park Service. We question, not only because of our easement, but because of its designation of a National Historic Landmark. It comes under the protection of Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, which ensures that there will be no licensing, funding, or permitting that affects the property without it being studied, analyzed, and mitigated. In addition, it's protected under the City of Beaufort zoning ordinance, which has very strict guidelines in protecting its historic assets. We feel like that the Park Service is working with Mr. Kaiserling to establish the National Reconstruction Era Park, which is a good thing. But we've not seen any long-term or short-term plans that establish the goals, the objectives, the programmatic areas over a long period of time that are planned for that park. It's a scattered site park, inserting the federal government into different neighborhoods, especially this case, which is a residential neighborhood and always has been residential. Then without proper study, analysis, and the creation of goals and public input is a dangerous thing. So we hope that you will reconsider the request to repurpose funds that have already been granted. Let there be time to study the situation. The purchase was only about 6 weeks ago. There's been no public study, and we think that you could postpone this and the applicant could reapply for the funds to switch the funding from one project to another with better study. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, another person who, go ahead, sir.
Hello, Chairman and respected members of the council. My name is Richard Campbell, and I am a resident in the Historic Point neighborhood, and I'm here to represent a newly formed organization by myself and several others that we call the Friends of the Historic Point neighborhood. We felt it was appropriate at this point in time to pull together our residents and address this issue when it came to light for us. We found out that there was a meeting, we found out on Wednesday that there was a finance committee meeting with a request to reallocate the funds that were designated for another property, reallocate them to this property. And so I was asked to come up and speak about the issue and give you some of our insights, which are preliminary given we've just gotten this started. The first thing to say is there's a real delicate balance, and I'm sure you guys know this, in the point of it being a neighborhood, but it also being a very important place for visitors to come and understand, the area and the history of the area. And we, as a neighborhood, embrace that. We embrace the horse and carriages. We embrace the walking tours, and we're helpful to the visitors, welcoming to the visitors. But there's a delicate balance here, and when you start looking at taking a home that's right in the middle of our neighborhood and converting it to a public property, that is a very difficult thing for the neighborhood to have to deal with. We're already overwhelmed with visitors, and that would not be a welcome process. So when you look at it, we have roughly $100 million of property in the point. You have 148, 150 homes, and all of us are keeping the historic nature, complying with the requirements, paying our taxes, and you'll see that we're overwhelmingly against this proposal. I think the applicant had said that the people right around the home are in general agreement. I will tell you that is not the case. I live 2 doors down. There's roughly 8 homes that are right around it, and I've talked to 6 of the 8. And nobody, is interested in this happening. It would just be too disruptive to the neighborhood. HBF has done a tremendous job and needs to continue to be the leader in preservation on the point and in our town. The home, by the way, has a modern interior. I mean, it's got everything that you'd expect in a beautiful modern home. So there's no value to the interior of that house being classified anyway historic. The Beaufort. The Historic Beaufort Foundation has that easement. It keeps the exterior of the home beautiful. People, I live 2 doors down. People every day are coming, taking pictures, enjoying the historic nature of that home. But opening up the inside of that home makes no sense. It makes no sense. Lastly, I think we have to address a comment that was made about our neighborhood at the Finance Committee meeting. And I'm going to quote Mr. Kaiserling from the minutes. It said, basically, quite frankly, I'm not sure they want that kind of people, this going on to draw in their neighborhood. I'll say that again because I kind of didn't say it right. And basically, quite frankly, I'm not sure they want the kind of people this is going to draw into their neighborhood. I mean, that was an offensive and completely inappropriate comment. It suggests that we're somehow racist and that we don't want people of color in our neighborhood. It was appalling for us to read that, frankly. For one, I can speak for myself. I mean, I have a company that has black partners. We have 5 middle managers in our company. 4 are black that we're grooming to be senior executives in our company or in their communities. So he knows nothing about what goes on behind our doors, and that is very offensive to everybody in our community. And we don't feel like a person like that should be leading a charge to, change the complexity of our community. 511 Prince Street is properly protected by the current easement. A zoning change would be required to accomplish the applicant's intentions. The property is presently a private residence, not a public property, and as such should not get unique benefits in the form of tax dollars, and it should continue to have to pay the same tax obligations the rest of us pay. We all pay our taxes, and we still comply with the historic requirements in our homes as well. And according to legal review, so far, it's indicated that perhaps the most important issue is that the council should return the money that was proposed to be allocated to another project. That money should get returned to the taxpayers, and a new application should be provided for the request rather than trying to move money from one project to another. And we think that, you know, that's from a procedural standpoint, that's actually not something that can be done. So lastly, I would just say 511 Prince Street is still a private residence, and for this government body to facilitate its movement into public hands is both contrary to the intent of the easement and contrary to the wishes of the community in which it sits. Such an undertaking will change the neighborhood forever and the residents' willingness to positively engage with the public, the town, and the county. You will kill the proverbial golden goose if this thing goes through. Note, there's several willing buyers of that property, by the way. This wasn't one of those things where the property wasn't going to go into good hands. There were several willing buyers willing to pay the price that seller was asking for, that will abide by the easement and live in our community and sit on the porches with us and enjoy the wonderful neighborhood that we have. Pardon me?
Time not going to be respected.
So with that, we ask that you decline the change or the proposed change, and appreciate your time. Thank you.
There are several others that want to speak against it. Is there anybody who wants to speak for this? Please come forward, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Councilman, councilpersons. My name is Alexander Mcbride. I'm the first African Baptist pastor down on the point, have been for the past 19 years, retired sergeant major of the Air Station out here for 30 years, also executive for military housing on the East Coast, as well as a teacher in the Beaufort County Schools, retired, and now presently pastor there. And instead of dealing with a lot of hearsay and speculation, I talked with Mr. Kaiserlin, and he proposed in his proposal, and he showed me a fact sheet. And on that fact sheet, he's taken the monies that was allocated by the council and wants to quadruple, if not 5 times more than what it is, to turn the portion of money that was allocated to in upwards over $1.1 million. Now, with that said, I am here as a product of misinformation and denied knowledge. And I say that to say there's born in Mississippi a child that was born under a peach tree and a shame to their parents. I never knew my father till I was 36 years old. With that, I found out he was the richest black man in Mississippi. But because of the shame of my birth, I was the poorest child in Mississippi, I think. But with that said, in the Robert Smalls House continuum, I entertain at the church Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays tours that go through. And I've only seen a walking tour or a tour led by the Park Foundation or maybe the minibuses that go through. And with that is very little disruption. I open the doors of the church, they come in, 2, 3, sometimes as many as 5, 6 at a time. It doesn't matter. And we go through the tour and nothing is disrupted. I look at this house at the misinformation of its history as it's presented by the tour groups and people around it. With the proper knowledge and the proper information, people like me will understand their heritage, the heritage of Robert Smalls, the heritage of what's going on. Right now, I have been bombarded with fear-mongering. They're going to turn the church parking lot into a bus station and all these other things that are untrue. I say that let's go exactly by the fact sheet in determining what happens with that instead of speculation. With that said, I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your decision in future.
Thank you. Mr. Kaiserling, you asked to speak. Do you wish to speak on this matter? And you will be the final speaker on this matter.
Mr. Chairman, we do have the president of our association who would like to make a few brief comments, perhaps after Mr. Kaiserling.
We'll see.
I'm going to defer 2 minutes. I would just say and ask council to address the issue that's on the agenda, which is using the funds to match and gain $488,000 in federal funds, and to use the match to get another $260,000 in private funds, taking a $384,000 allocation, doing all of the projects that we're committed to, that funded that, plus 2 more. Robert Small's house issue and tourism, the deed, the conservation easement is a contract that the owner, my brother and I, have with Historic Beaufort Foundation. We recognize that. We have been trying to reach and talk to them, and we will talk to them, and we will work it out, and we can live with the easement as it is, quite frankly. I have a letter, if you'd like it, from John McCardle, the former owner, whose interpretation, having lived under that easement, says there's nothing, given what we're talking about doing and the restrictions we're going to put on it when we transition it to the National Trust for Historic Preservation. The second thing I would say is no one doubts, having been mayor for 12 years, on council for 4, that tourism management is a critical issue in the city of Beaufort. But I don't think it's germane to the leveraging of dollars that are going to take 2 projects, fund 4 projects, bring in triple the amount of money coming into Beaufort County for improving our heritage tourism and the product as well as the infrastructure. We will deal with the E, but I quite frankly don't think it's the county's business in interfering with our contract with Historic Beaufort Foundation on the easement. And secondly, I do not think you want to get into the business of taking the temperature of horses, being referees in carriage wars, deciding the routes of tourists when they come and go, permitting Halloween tours, etc. I think that's the city's business, and I think there's some concerns. I have dealt with them for 16 years, but I don't think that that's the issue on your agenda item 14. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have gone beyond our 15 minutes, so I'm going to close the...
I'm from Lona, who used to own the Robert Small's house. She asked I say something on her behalf. Is that appropriate?
I'm sorry, say that again. I didn't...
Lona Acker, who owned the Robert Small's house prior, she asked me to say something on her behalf. If her friend is here, and that's perfectly fine. There's copy here, right? She asked specifically to say something.
This is on the house. She's over.
Yes, I know that.
Eric, if you wouldn't mind, I think if we can take 2 minutes and let our president of the association say a few words, I think that would be a...
2 minutes.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it. That's all I need. My name is Steve Amaro. I'm the current president of the Point Neighborhoods Association. And the first thing, if you don't mind, I'd like to show you a small part of the support from our neighborhood. So I was like to ask the neighbors that are against this project, this proposal, to please raise their hand to show the support. And that's a small sample. From that, I really want to just address 3 false statements made by the applicant, Billy Kaiserling, to the County Council Finance Committee last week. And as per the transcript, that's what I'm getting that information from. Number 1, Mr. Kaiserling said, the neighborhood refused to meet with us, myself and the National Trust. As of today, we still have not received any direct correspondence from Mr. Kaiserling, nor the National Trust requesting a meeting. I challenged Mr. Kaiserling to submit a copy of that request and the association's refusal of a meeting, which he claims we did. Number 2, Mr. Kaiserling said they passed the motion. No motion was ever initiated nor passed. The executive committee sent out an email to its members informing them of a proposal to change 511 Prince Street from a private residential home to a federally owned property operated by the National Park Service. We solicited our members' opinions. The association currently has 97 active members. We received 80 responses and 70 are profoundly against the change of use of 511 Prince Street. Number 3, Mr. Kaiserling said I'll skip that one. I'm running out of time. I'll say anyway, they circulate basically misinformation in the neighborhood about what the intention was. I've included a copy of the email that our association sent to our members. Mr. Kreisling has a copy as well. Maybe Mr. Kreisling could identify the basically misinformation that he accuses me and the association of spreading. There is a real good reason why Bill Kreisling wants to deceive and deflect. He knows that the vast majority of our great neighbors are against his plan for 511 Prince Street.
Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry, I hate to interrupt it, but on the 21st of July, Mr. Amaro acknowledged having received the document requested from me, and he thanks me for it.
We're now ready to move on the agenda items.
It's not fair.
And not allow all these people to want to speak. I sat on council.
Unacceptable.
I have now declared that this session is over. We understand exactly your points. When it gets to that item, I may open it up again, depending upon our discussion. Committee reports.
Can I do my other?
Yes.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a presentation at this time. Would Ellie come forward, Ellie Levin and Neil Lipset and Eric Greenway and Chuck Atkinson, and we have Shannon Loper online. Neil Lipset is a county council member. City councilman who lives near Southside Park, like myself, is a county council member, and Ellie Levin was part of a task force and headed up. We would like to present something to our leader, Eric Greenway, who saw a need. We've had, as you know, lots of different leaders in the last 2 years, but Eric said he would help the task force, and Chuck helped with that, and Shannon is online, and we have public pickleball in northern Beaufort County now. And I can testify that it must be very popular because this is all they had at Walmart. And this is for Shannon when she. That's too good. We'll get it to her. But I want to thank your perseverance and your creative ways of getting this done. And we are all enjoying it. You want to say something, Ellen?
I just want to say there's people here who've been working on this for 4 years. This is a happy announcement, and we're so thrilled. We had a grand opening on the 15th of this month. It was very well attended. Eric was able to come along with Sarah, and Alice was there, and Neil was there. It was great fun. So we're doing a clinic on Monday morning at 10 o'clock. We'll teach you how to play. So we'd like you to come.
Looks like I'm really great. It'll be awesome.
Thank you, John.
Yes,
Thank you. John.
Thank you.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, I think they want a picture of us.
Oh,
Can I take the mask?
Yeah, you can take the mask off.
Yes, we'll go Sam. No, it's fine. Oh, we need to slide that.
Thank you.
I could have got one for you.
Okay. From the consent agenda, we have 3 committees. Mr. Lawson, we'll go with you first.
Yes, from the Finance Committee, we have an ordinance, a third reading. It's been passed unanimously up to this point, that all other ordinances and is provide for carryover of certain expenditures for fiscal year 2021. We also have a third reading, which also has been passed unanimously in all other readings. It is authorizing redirection expenditure of a portion of the proceeds of Beaufort County general obligation bonds. And then also a request to authorize a staff to look at negotiating for parking spaces, parking lots near the old courthouse.
Thank you. Ms. Howard?
Yes, we have 4 items. The first one is a text amendment to the Community Development Code to add more flexibility for parking so that we could actually have public, like a shuttle type parking availability at different locations if we needed it. The next item is abandonment of an easement that was recommended. The third item is a zoning amendment for 3.09 acres of property. I think the owner is sitting here in the front row to rezone her property from S1 to C3 to fit in with the neighborhood better. And then the last item is the fill standards to limit the amount of fill on low-lying areas. This is the third reading on that, and it has been discussed and amended according to different input from different organizations such as the Real Estate Association, and this is the final and last reading for that text amendment.
Thank you. And Mr. Rodman?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have several items coming out of public facilities. One is a study we've been talking about for a while to get on with looking at the boat landings and what we need to do to upgrade those and maintain those. We have 3 pieces of major public works equipment, all within budget, all were planned. We also have, that's all that we had for council on the agenda. We had 2 other items coming out of committee of interest. One was we talked about Weeby Point, I think if I got the name right, about whether or not that dock ought to be torn down and build a new one. And the consensus of the committee was that that was the better alternative as opposed to trying to refurbish it. So staff will be working on the engineering of that and probably see it coming forward. And also there was a request which fell within the committee's approval, which was to have an outside consultant look at all of our pools and give us advice on what we ought to do on those. But those are the items, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So I would ask now for a member of council for the approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second. Mr. Somerville made the motion. Second, please.
Mr. Dawson.
I'll second it.
Yes, Mr. Dawson makes the second. Duly motioned and seconded. This will be done without objection. I do not see any objections, therefore the consent agenda is approved. Item number 10 is matters arising out of executive session that we did at Caucus. We're going to take that up when we do item number 13. That's what we discussed in executive session. We're now ready to do the items. We're going to hold a public hearing and second reading of a text amendment to the Beaufort County Code of Ordinances, Chapter 42, Article 2, Division 3, Section 42-81 to update the boundaries in the Sheldon Fire District. Is there any member of the public here that wishes to comment on this? Seeing none, is there anybody online?
No, sir. Chief Jones is online if you wanted to say something, but other than that, no, sir.
Okay. Chief, did you want to say something before we have a motion and second to approve this?
No, sir. But this is an area we've been protecting for years. But we will be getting our tax base from this area now, which we wasn't getting in the past.
Thank you, sir. Okay. I will now need a motion and second for the approval of this agenda item. A motion, please.
Move, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dawson makes the motion. A second, please.
Second, sir.
Mr. Flewelling makes the second. Duly motioned and seconded. Is there any objection to approving this item? I see no objection. Item number 11 is approved. Item number 12 is a public hearing and second reading of an ordinance regarding a text amendment to the Community Development Code, Section 3.1.60, Consolidated Use Table, and Section 4.1.190, Recreation Facility Campgrounds, to revise the campgrounds standards. Is there any member of the public who wishes to comment on this item? Is there anyone online? Seeing none? Motion and second, please.
I make a motion.
Ms. Howard makes the motion. Second? Mr. Rodman makes the second. Any discussion?
If I could, Mr. Chairman, I'm hoping that, when this gets passed, we'll have time to evaluate Mr. Trask's request to extend that. Perhaps there's some way to do it during particularly high traffic times of the year to extend that stay from 30 days to some other day. And I'm hoping that staff will have a chance to evaluate at some point in the near future and get back to us if they recommend a change. That's my only comment, sir.
Thank you very much. This is the second reading, so we do have one more opportunity. So your point is well taken. Any other comments?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was not prepared to talk about this today because I hadn't really thought about extending the 30-day out of 60 to 60 out of 90. And I'm not familiar enough with campground standards to know whether that's a good idea or a bad idea. But I do know this, that these RVs and campgrounds are proliferating all over the country. I just came back from a 5-day trip through Florida, and oh my gosh. And so I guess my point is a lot of people are traveling that way and they're staying that way. They're kind of itinerants, I guess you might say. But maybe that 60 days makes sense. I'm not in a position to say it does or doesn't, but just to be on the safe side, I'd like to make a motion that between second and third reading that we ask our staff to take a look at that, and if it's feasible and reasonable and it makes more sense for the people that we want to attract to Beaufort County, that we slip that in at third reading. And I don't think it's going to be a major change, so I don't think it'll kick it back. So I would like, Mr. Chairman, if I could, to make a motion to ask staff to please consider between second and third reading extending it from 30 to 60 to 60 to 90.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right, so we have an amendment to this that's duly motioned and seconded to have administration take a look at extending the date time to a different date.
Yeah, we're glad to do that, but I would be reluctant to recommend past 82 days consecutive, because I think that's when the state law says that that's a long-term rental situation and you're no longer able to collect accommodations taxes at that point. But we will report back to you all prior to third reading.
Could I amend my motion to ask staff to please consider extending the time permitted from 30 out of 60 to 82 out of what, 90?
Well,
did I understand you correctly?
I would prefer you to make the motion that you allow staff to do 30 to 60 and whatever time frame is necessary in order to keep the accommodations tax rule intact.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'd like to make that, amend my motion to that.
All right, the second will agree to that. Mr. Herbishon?
I'll hold my question given how that was just phrased.
Okay, all right. Everybody understand, Mr. Lawson?
No, I don't, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, what is being said, Brian, is that they will take a look at extending the time with the idea that it has to be extended to a maximum amount of days.
Right. I heard all that, Joe. My question is, it was framed as an amendment, but in the discussion, it's being phrased as a direction to staff. And so my question is, are we amending the motion to approve this and amending the language of the original motion to reflect that was just discussed by Mr. Somerville and by the administrator, or does the ordinance remain intact? and we're voting to approve it. Are we really taking two different issues and conflating them? Can we approve the ordinance as it is and direct staff without changing the ordinance? That's my question.
If I might offer a solution, it might be just cleaner for you all to vote to give it second reading with a directive to instruct the staff to do this, and we will do that and respond prior to third reading. So Councilmember Somerville and Councilmember Flewelling are saying the same thing. They would like for us to evaluate that prior to third reading, and we're happy to do that without any additional vote.
So will you rescind your?
Yes,
and will you
absolutely.
rescind your second?
I will, but can I have a question beforehand?
Sure.
If we go about that and we give you guys the direction on it, can we get some type of either presentation or at a committee meeting of that update before our county council meeting so we can have a clear directive?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure.
We'll have it ready prior to natural resources,
Thank you.
so we can do it then.
Mr. Lawson.
I just want to point out that the reason that we're limiting the number, the amount of stay is, one, we don't want these to become people that live there year round. And then more importantly, when it comes to children and children coming out of those campgrounds and living there year round. So that is one of the reasons, not just because we're trying to collect accommodation taxes. That's one of the minor things. Again, it's just to make them so they are campgrounds that are for use and not someone that's going to stay there and live there for a long period of time.
Yes, very good point. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Herbishon, were your questions answered?
Yeah, my question was around the 82 days, and I think Eric addressed that with the way that he phrased the way that the research is going to be done and the tax deadlines and things like that.
Okay. Does everybody understand what we're voting on? We're voting on the ordinance as written now with directions to administration to make some recommended changes. Okay. This will be done without objection. Are there any objections? Seeing no objections, item 12 is adopted. Item number 13 is a public hearing and resolution authorizing the county administrator to execute the necessary documents and provide funding for the purchase of a conservation easement on real property known as Dale. Okay. Is there anybody in the public who wishes to make a comment at this time? Is there? Please come forward.
Good evening. My name is Linda M. Lloyd Hills, and I would like to know, how do you all as councilmen do the voting? Constituents put you all in office. I have yet to have my councilman to ask me how I feel about my district and what do I look for. My concern is, we put you all in office. Can't we have a hometown meeting at least once a month to see how your constituents feel about these policy and procedures that you all are passing? Another question that I have is that a couple months ago, there was a sign on Ladies Island that pertained to Beaufort County Public School, but it was in it was in the councilman district. My concern is, how often do you all come out and look at your district, check your surrounding in your district? How often do you go out and find out what your constituents want? A lot of things that has been passed, did the constituents had a lot to do with it? So I would like for you all to think about it, because that's something that affecting me, and I would like to know how you all vote. You passed in policy and procedure, but I'm not included in that. So I want you all to think about having hometown meeting with your constituents to see what we want in order to pass things, and not for you all just to stand up and say, well, we vote for this, we vote for that. I need to know why you all are voting, and I need my voice to be heard in the voting process. Thank you.
there anyone else who wants to speak about item number 13, which is the Dale PDR? Is there anyone online? Okay. I will need a motion and second to begin this.
So moved.
Mr. Somerville.
I'll second.
Mr. Cunningham, you were the second.
Yes, sir.
Okay. A discussion before we take action.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Summer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're next, Mr. Dawson.
I'm certainly going to support this. It makes a lot of sense as a preservation item on a standalone basis, but there are two reasons to support this. One, of course, is as a preservation matter, but secondly, because our largest economic engine in the county has asked us to do it. The Marine Corps has been our partner, and the Navy have been our partner for over 100 years. They don't ask for much, but in this case, this is particularly important, not just at the local level, but at the national level, to the Marine Corps and the Department of the Navy and the Department of Defense. So if for no other reason, whether you agree or not, that it's a great preservation item, I hope everyone will support it because of our partner, the United States Marine Corps. As I say, they don't ask for much. This is important to them, and I think we should do it for that reason alone. Plus, I think it's a great standalone environmental or preservation move as well.
Other comments? Mr. Lawson. I'm sorry, Mr. Dawson.
Mr. Dawson, yep, you're right.
I apologize. Mr. Dawson, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a purchase of the conservation easement of approximately 274 acres in the Dale community. The parties involved is the Open Land Trust, Marine Corps Air Station, Department of Defense, and Beaufort County. Millions of dollars are being spent for the purchase of this easement. And these dollars are public tax dollars that are being spent. Now, we, the council, we establish a passive park ordinance that would allow public access to lands that are purchased by our Rural and Critical Lands program. There's no public access to this purchase that is being advocated here. There's no public access to it. It allows hunting, it allows tennis, agriculture, but the bottom line is it lends itself to a select group of the public and not the public at large. And so I say it's not right that we spend millions of public tax dollars when the public doesn't have access to this property. And so I'm not going to support this. I'm going to vote against this.
Thank you. Any other comments? Mr. Lawson.
Yes, I have some of the same reservations that Mr. Dawson has. However, I'll vote to move forward at this point to get us to the second reading. I'm questioning how much money we're spending for a piece of property. Again, this comes from our own critical lands monies that if it wasn't for, as Mr. Somerville eloquently said, the DOD being involved with the Marine Air Station, I would not vote for this. But half the money is coming from the OD, half the money is coming from rural and critical lands. We're putting in about $3 million. And just to correct Mr. Dawson, I think you might have broke up, but it's actually 2,400 acres, is not 274. So again, it is a large piece. It's on the water. It's very critical. But again, I don't feel good about it right now, but I'll vote to move it forward, hoping we can get some things figured out.
Okay, 2 points. Number one, the acreage has yet to be determined. It may be a total of 2,519 acres. That's number one. Number two, this is the final action that is going to be taken. This is not an ordinance. This is a resolution. And number three, as we discussed, there is one part of the document that is going to be struck. So when we're approving this, we do need to make sure that we're approving it with that one particular section being taken out of the document. Mr. Harvishon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not going to support this tonight. I'm uneasy about several factors of this. One is that there's no public access to the property, and nor will there be for Councilman Dawson. It's a lot of money. It's about $3 million coming out of the taxpayer's pocket for no access to it. No doubt it's a great piece of property, and it'd be great if we could purchase it fee simple, but this is simply a conservation easement. I just don't see the benefit for the public in order to expend those amount of funds. So for that reason, I'm not going to support it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead, Ms.
I have and will support this action. We're preventing encroachment on the air station, which is one of the largest single employers in the county. It's a 50-50 split. There is access to the water. This will prevent further water pollution. It's part of the sound, which is so important, which is part of our mission with the Rural and Critical Lands Program, is to preserve the environment. And if I'm not mistaken, it's probably the last piece of property of this size left in the county that we have an opportunity to partner on.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Glover, and then Mr.
I think Mr. Law, Pam was up first, Mr. Chairman. I'll go after him.
Go ahead.
Sure. I am actually going to support this. One of the big things you're going to hear all of us debate about is the use of the tax dollars and public access or no public access. Two of the things. One, we know for a fact this deal will not get done with any type of public access. It will be off the table, which means this land can be developed however they see fit at this point, over 2,400 acres. That is it. Second part, it is a lot of money, and it is a lot of our tax dollars. But we also know that the Marine Corps station brings in a lot more tax revenue than that from people out of this area when they come in to visit, when they come in for graduation. And to protect the Marine Corps base and the air station here in Beaufort County for now and to the future is a lot more than the 2.8, I think it is, that we're willing to spend on our half. It is important to keep that largest employer, like we've already said, and that tax revenue with those people coming in here in Beaufort County. That's the basis of Beaufort side on its own. That's protecting the economy on this side of the water. And I'm a resident of Bluffton. I represent that side, but I know for a fact Bluffton and Hilton Head will also be hurt by that. And undoubtedly so would Beaufort if at some point that left this area. There were two things that we had questions about. Those have both been addressed. Now it's just to a point of all of our individual opinions on minor details. But the fact of the matter is preserving the waterways and preserving the mission and preserving the airspace is a necessity to make sure Beaufort County is successful. So I am going to continue to support it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Who was next? Mr. Glover?
Mr. Chairman, from the outset, let me just say that I've supported this project from day one, almost 2 years ago when it first came to before the Rural and Critical Land program. And one of the reasons I supported this is when you look at the map in that area, this piece of property is like a donut hole. We have conservation easement all around the area, except for this piece of property along the Winby Creek. And we can go down the list that we supported over the years of property in this area. It's like Mrs. Howard just said, not only is it part of the air station supporting this project, but the St. Helena Sound, which is one of the most pristine area water in Beaufort County at this time, growing some of the best oysters around, shrimp, fishing. This donut hole fits provide protection for that St. Helena Sound. That's one of the reasons I supported this, because the fishing industry is a major industry in my community. Conservation easement is all we are buying. We're not buying the we don't own the property, and we have bought conservation easement on other properties, and we don't have public access because the owners still own the property, and it's their right to do whatever they want to do. They can sell the property if they want to, However, the conservation easement goes with that. So I support this project and will continue to support it. I hope we can work out all the details as we move forward. Thank you.
Mr. Herbishon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Councilman Cunningham brought up an interesting question. I'm just wondering if somebody on staff can remind me how this property is currently zoned and give some examples of what could be developed there potentially if we don't do anything with this.
Yeah, so it's zone T2, is zone T2R, so that would require a density of 1 unit per 3 acres. So if you take 3, divide it into 2,500 or whatever it happens to be, that gives you a number of dwellings. A lot of dwelling units. You know, without going into too many details, you know, the market has to be there. It would be very difficult to develop this property because it's at the end of a long, narrow 2-lane state maintained road. There would have to put that number of houses out there. There would have to be a substantial upgrade to the infrastructure adjacent to it. So from a market standpoint, it would be several years. The argument in favor of that is that you're buying the property, the conservation value of the property now at a reduced rate. If you wait until it gets to the point to where the market allows it to be developed, then it's going to be worth a lot more money and a lot more costly at that point. In addition to that, you are, to the points that have already been made, you are doing a lot to protect the water quality of something that there's been a joint effort on both sides of the basin in other counties to protect, and that's the Ace Basin. So this is going to protect that, provided that the property and the conservation easement is managed properly, not to allow negative impacts to be constructed on that property that's going to negatively impact the water quality. And I will reiterate to council again, I am concerned about there being no limitation on the size of structures that can get built on this property, because you can build a big building that requires big parking lots, that requires a lot of traffic to come in and out of this small narrow 2-lane road. So that is my concern, and that is a very likely possibility given the situation here.
So just so that I'm clear, we're looking at potentially the way that it's zoned right now. Worst case scenario over some period of time would be about 800 and some odd houses, plus or minus, so 1 per 3 acres. Okay. I don't think that changes my mind. I don't know that creates huge potential to degrade the water quality around that without us spending $3 million for property that nobody can access. I still think it's a great piece of property, but I just don't know that this is the best use of taxpayer funds.
Okay, any other comments?
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Dawson?
Yeah, just to correct a statement that was made that there's water access. I just want to state for the record that there's water access, but it's not open to the public.
Thank you. Okay, we have it duly motioned and second. The motioner, Mr. Somerville, and Mr. Cunningham, the second. I would like you to amend your motions to include the removal of the one passage that we have to do, and that we have 2 pieces of property that still have to be quantified for the total acreage of 2,519 acres.
If I could make a suggestion, that be the survey as certified by LCRM.
Correct.
The survey of the property.
Right.
Because it's been surveyed, but it hasn't been certified where the critical line is.
So it's to remove the one paragraph and to make sure that before the transaction is completed, it is a certified survey.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will certainly amend my motion to include the deletion of the whereas clause that allows the easement to be given back to the Department of Defense or the U.S. government, I think, as it's written. And secondly, that the final acreage be determined by the survey that has already been done. That sound right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mr. Cunningham, would you agree to the second?
I'll second
Okay,
that.
duly motioned and seconded. Because we will have some negative votes, I will call the roll on this particular one. Mr.
Larry
Summer-
wants to.
I'm sorry?
Larry have his hand up?
Nope.
Nope, okay.
I'm good.
Mr. Somerville, you will go first.
Somerville votes yes.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yes.
Mr. Dawson,
No?
Mr. Flewelling,
Yes.
Mr. Glover,
Yes.
Mr. Hervishon,
No.
Ms. Howard,
Yes.
Mr. Lawson,
Mark Lawson, no.
Mr. McKellen,
Yes.
Mr. Rodman,
Yes.
chair votes yes, and it is 8 yes and 3 no. The motion is successful. We move to the next one. This is a first reading of an ordinance to repurpose Community Foundation of the Low Country's 2021 Local ATAX Grant Award. A motion, please.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Dawson made the motion. A second, please.
Second.
Mr. Rodman makes a second. Before we have a discussion, the audience should know this is a first reading. We're going to have 2 additional readings and a public hearing. Tonight, the discussion is going to be focusing on only the repurposing of the ATAX award. Has nothing to do with what the property may or may not be used for. It's whether or not by ordinance we're going to shift those funds. Okay, discussion. Mr. Somerville.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Normally, this would be a pretty simple decision for me. Applicants for ATAX money have to meet certain criteria. They have to fill out a lengthy application, and they're considered by the ATAX board and then brought to us. The money that's being discussed to be moved is a product of an approval that we made some time ago for the Brick Baptist Church and the Grand Army Hall. There were three properties that were requested money to upgrade. There was a third property at Stokes Cottage, which was denied at that time. So 2 out of 3 were approved. 1 was denied. It's my belief that ATAX money can't be moved around. It's not fungible. It was that we as a county approved that money for the upgrade of the Brick Baptist Church and the Grand Army Hall, and for no other purpose. If the money is not used for that purpose, it needs to come back to the county. And if somebody wants money for another purpose, they need to fill out an application just like everybody else and get in line just like everybody else. To me, what's happening here is an entity has come in and trying to bump the queue. They don't want to go through the process like everybody else. They don't want to compete with everybody else. They just want to take money that they think is already on the table. A lot of people have been denied ATAX money, and they would like to come back and have a shot at this money. A lot of people have never applied for ATAX money, would like to, and would like to come back and have a shot at this money. We have a finite number of dollars in Beaufort County under our accommodations tax, the 3% that we control. And I think everybody deserves a fair shot at it. But just to single out one entity and say, okay, sure, you can have it. You don't have to compete. You don't have to fill out an application. You don't even have to be a 501c, and we'll be happy to give you the money. To me, that's absurd. That's the simple part of this. But beyond that, there's some things about this that have caused me to do some research and look at some things that I hadn't looked at before. Shame on me. And the more I look at it, the more I'm very uncomfortable with this request. There were 2 things that particularly bothered me. One was mentioned earlier, and one I'll mention. One is the suggestion by the entity that's seeking this money that anybody who doesn't agree with this is doing so for racial reasons is offensive to me, and it should be offensive to anybody in this community. If that's the best reason you have to argue for your case, you don't have much of a case. And secondly, I received 2 letters in the last 2 days, lengthy letters from a person that I've never heard of, telling me that I was an advisory board member to the entity that's asking for this money. And that is absolutely not true. I mean, if it were true, I'd probably have to recuse myself. But I'm very offended that anybody would stoop to the level to accuse me of being a board member of the applicant that's trying to get this money. So let me make the record clear. First of all, I never heard of this organization. It was only created in July. And second is I don't believe it's a 501c. but that's another matter that we can talk about at another time. But I say this, no, absolutely no. We cannot just transfer or repurpose this money for somebody else who comes along and thinks it'd be a nice idea to grab it off the table. Thank you.
Paul, I don't think I've ever agreed with you more on this stand in the 9 months I've been up here. I don't have much to say after you said that. You took pretty much every note off my paper. The one that I didn't have until we got in here today was the statement by the applicant, and that turned me off completely. There's no way I will support this. There's no way that should be used as a weapon. There's no way that should be used as a political ploy. We've all seen my social media before. We know that I've addressed this stuff before. There's no way that we should be shifting this money. And to even have that statement, which I can't wait to go read the transcripts myself to make sure that that is accurate, is despicable, and I will 100% vote no.
Any other comments? Mr. Flewelling.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Kaiserling in his address at the beginning of this meeting and in letters that I've seen has urged County Council to not become involved in the daily operations of the point, and he contends that that's a matter for the city to do. I think that by approving this request, we are inserting ourselves into the business of the point and in the business of the city. I think that the best thing we can do is stay out of all that business, and that would mean declining to move this money on its own authority. Maybe maybe let that process play out where the applicant would come forward with a legitimate separate request and let it compete amongst all the others. And maybe at that point we can get some refinement of what actually is going to take place on the property, at the property, and how it will be used, how the neighborhood would be impacted. But I think we need to give this more time at a minimum.
Thank you. Others? Mr. Lawson.
Yes, whenever this came before the Finance Committee, we looked at it and went, wow, what a great idea. Why wouldn't we do this? And so that's why it was approved and sent forward. But obviously we're getting more facts and more time is bringing more things forward. So obviously, as Chairman Passman said, this is only the first reading. And as I look at this, I would still probably vote to push it to second reading as we gather more facts. Exactly as Mr. Somerville said, and again, I have no reason to doubt anything that he has told us tonight. Or as Mr. Flewelling just said, that we just need more time to look at these issues that have been brought forward. So at this point, I'm still determined whether I vote for it, which I probably will, just to push it forward for us to get more information.
Any other comments? Ms. Howard.
I was not at the finance meeting, and I watched the meeting several times when I got back from where we were, where I could watch it. And I have several concerns that have already been very well said by others. But my other big concern is that if we do approve this, we're changing our own policy. Our policy for ATAX money is the whole application procedure. And this needs to come back through because we do not have in our policy of our ATAX program to change the money around, to my knowledge. So that's I will vote no for this.
Mr. Rodman, did you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of comments. First of all, Robert Smalls is a real local and national hero, so it makes sense to preserve his home in some form going forward. And it's partially confirmed, I understand. At our meeting at the Finance Committee, there were a couple of issues. I read the letter from the chairman of the board of the second founding, and I thought many of the issues that were brought up at that time as to who the ownership was and whether money was passing through certain hands and whether anybody was going to make any money, and whether there was increased tourism and so on. I thought those were reasonably answered. The history of the house, as I see it in recent times, is back about 5 years ago, when the concept of becoming a national monument was before us and before the community, there was an opening under the Antiquities Act that the president can actually create a national monument as opposed to going through Congress, which is a laborious situation. And at that time, the thought was that the House would have been part of that, but essentially in the press of time, there was not an opportunity to get it in there. I think when we looked at it from an ATAC standpoint, it was presented to us, if memory serves me correctly, it was pointed out that this was one of the items that they really wanted to do, but it was not available at that point in time. And then it did become available. Time was kind of the essence. And I think Mayor Billy and his group stepped forward and into that breach and put us in a position where we can consider that. And clearly they didn't do anything wrong by doing that. I do think that that the whole concept of the reconstruction, national monument, national park, is an important thing for Beaufort County, and I personally would thank Mayor Billy for what he's done in spearheading that. And a couple things about that. He has a real heart for the education piece in these times, and he got a donor to put up, I guess, $250,000, and there's an education center that's being put up. So if we come to the money, it's not a matter of whether the money comes back to us for a reallocation. If we don't do anything, the money will still stay and still be used as it was originally proposed. What's actually proposed is that by keeping the money the same, but pointing so it can be used for 3 projects instead of 2, you can do what's called leveraging, and that creates the possibility that we get the better part of $500,000 of a federal grant. So the money we put in then becomes more money, and the overall plan is to raise $2 million in total. And so if we do this, they've got a good leg up to about $1 million of that. And one of the things that happens in private fundraising is that people that are going to put money into these kind of projects, they always look to see what kind of local support there is. And many times governments will put some money in the beginning so that it encourages other people to give, and people that are giving that don't live here have some sense that it's a good project. So in other words, we're not going to get any money back. The money's going to stay the same. The question is whether or not we allow the money that we gave on the ATAX to be used to garner federal money, which will go into buying the house, which will go into a private foundation, which is something that we all want to do anyway. It just makes that easier. I also think that a way possible would be to keep this open. There's some issues as to whether people agreed to meet or not meet, but perhaps they could meet in the meantime. And the organization that looks at this for us, this is what's called local ATAX, as I remember it. And so we have a staff committee that makes recommendations to us. It doesn't go through the regular ATAX committee. And it would leave time for because I think it's primarily county employees, for them to take a look at it and see if they disagree with this. But I actually think it's a reasonable thing to do. I think most of the questions have been answered, and essentially we would be leveraging, getting an extra $500,000 toward heritage tourism without really impacting the community very much. So that's my view, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. Mr. Dawson, you made the motion. You get to vote first.
Yes.
You said yes, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Rodman, you were second?
Yes.
Mr. Cunningham?
No.
Mr. Flewelling?
No.
Mr. Glover,
No.
Mr. Harvishon,
No.
Ms. Howard,
No.
Mr. Lawson,
Yes.
Mr. McKellen,
Yes.
Mr. Somerville.
No.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 no,
6-4.
6, 4, and I am a no. Motion is defeated.
No, you don't recognize everybody.
Okay, next item is a first reading of an ordinance authorizing the county administrator.
I had raised my hand because I wanted.
When we
before
get
you
to the
voted,
citizens' comments, you'll have a chance.
withdraw our request.
When we get to the citizens' comments, you will be recognized to address county council. We have a couple more items to go through first. Thank you. Item number 15 is a first reading of an ordinance authorizing the county administrator to execute a modification of a drainage easement associated with parcel R112-031-0002840.
Mr. Chairman?
Motion.
I can make a motion first to pass, to go past the 8 o'clock hour.
I'll second it.
Let's take this one, then you can do that, because we're mixing motions.
Yep.
Okay, motion and second for the first reading of this.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Flewelling makes the motion. A second, please.
Second.
Mr. Somerville makes the second. Is there any discussion? This will be done without objection. Any objections? Seeing no objections, the first reading is approved. Now you may make your motion, Mr. Lawson.
I'd like to make a motion, we extend past the 8 o'clock hour.
Second.
And who made the second? Mr. Cunningham made the second. Duly motioned and second to go past 8 o'clock if necessary, maybe. Any objections? One objection.
No, I don't object.
No, I know you're okay. He's objecting. Okay. Mr. Dawson, you're objecting?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we have 2 objections. The rest are voting yes, so we will go past the 8 o'clock hour. Item number 16 is approval of a resolution regarding the implementation of the COVID-19 inpatient employee leave donation program as detailed. A motion, please.
I'd like to make a motion to approve
Ms.
this.
Howard makes the motion. Second, please.
York, second.
I'll second.
Mr. Glover makes the second. Scott?
Good evening, Chairman, members of council. Got a motion and a second. I'm happy to cover any part of this with you. If you have any questions about it, I have a short presentation if you'd like to see that. But given the time and the hour, I will yield to your preferences.
I think that we're ready to vote on this. Okay? Is there any objection to this? Seeing no objection, this is approved. Item number 17 is an approval of a resolution to accept the federal grant award 1H79T1084543-01 in the amount of $1.9 million. A motion, please.
So moved.
Mr. Somerville made the motion, Mr. Rodman made the second. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, this will be approved without objection. Okay, we're now at the second citizen comments. Mr. Kaiserling, please come forward.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, let me apologize for jumping up a few minutes ago. That was totally uncalled for, and I knew there was another time. But I had been raising my hand before you took the vote because I wanted to withdraw the request. And the reason I wanted to withdraw the request is that when I decided not to run for re-election as mayor, I decided I wanted to work on the bigger issues of citizenship, on the truth, on our history, how we teach our children, And I found in the period of Reconstruction, there's so many answers to the vitriolics, to the division of today, to the hate, to the fake news, to the disinformation, that if we could better understand that. And towards that end, we're creating the Learning Center. Mr. Somerville, in 2018, when we incorporated, you on a telephone call agreed to be a member of the advisory committee, one of 100 people, including Representative Erickson.
I can't understand a word you're saying, Billy, so.
I'll take this off. I said, do you want me to start all over again?
No.
Okay. What I said, Mr. Somerville, was in 2018, you were still, I think, chairman of county council or vice chairman. And that's when I asked you and Mr. Rodman, when we incorporated what was called Reconstruction Beaufort, which is a fund within the Community Foundation of the Low Country, to be one of 100+ members in the advisory board, and you agreed to do it.
I have no recollection of that.
You may not remember that, but I have careful records because I wouldn't put people's names on paper without it. But anyway, my point is, this has become so ugly. This is doing exactly the opposite of what my intention and our intention is. Our idea is to bring people together, to have civil conversations, to be trustful of each other, to tell the truth. And they're reading emails, saying things I've said, I'll assume responsibility. This is not going in the direction of where I want my community to go, where I want my country to go, and certainly not the lesson that I want to teach the next generation who are going to be sitting in those chairs, in the chairs I sat in. So when I raised my hand, I was hoping before you voted no, to save everybody the embarrassment. I will go back to the federal government. I will turn back the $488,000 that cannot be repurposed. We have purchased the property. We have a fundraising campaign underway. We have an agreement, a preservation conservation easement that we're perfectly happy to negotiate. I've been waiting since July to sit down with Historic Beaufort to do that. And I'll bring the county council out of it, quite frankly. I don't want to see government, and I don't want to see people acting the way we have all been acting, and I'll say myself as well. I have said some things I didn't want to say, but when Mr. Flewelling suggested last week at the Finance Committee that I was doing this to make money, it set me off. And quite frankly, the reference to those people were people telling me they didn't want busloads of school children coming into the neighborhood and creating a racket and going to see this house of Beaufort County's single most renowned hero, military hero, political hero, the father of public education, the man who brought Parris Island first, the naval shipyard, to Beaufort. We talk about the military and its contribution. To be able to let people learn more about this man, who's one of the greatest men, whose story has been hidden, whose home has been private, whose yard people couldn't walk into, to me was a good idea. Clearly, the community doesn't think that. County council is put in a very awkward position. I don't like that. That makes me feel terrible. And therefore, I wanted, before putting anyone in a position of voting, one way or another, and creating a record, I wanted to withdraw the motion. The house is purchased. There's fundraising underway. We're already working on plans for the original grant for the foundation work at Grand Army Hall of the Republic and for the moving the cottage at the Deacon's Cottage. That's already underway. Those were going to happen anyway. So the difference, quite frankly, is that we will have to find a way to go back to the federal government and see if we can rescue the $488,000 they awarded us for those projects. And we will continue to raise money. American Express has supported us. We've raised just under $500,000 already, just under $400,000 already. We haven't launched a campaign. But I don't like what this has done to my community. I don't like what it's done to me. I don't like what it's done to me. This is not the Beaufort that I want to be. This is not why I quit tired from being there. But anyway,
Billy Cosling,
Mr. Chairman.
And therefore, I just want to thank you all for going through what has, for me, been a miserable time since July, when we decided, since no one else was going to do it, try to put this property in the public hands so that our children and our visitors can understand.
Mr. Chairman.
Our community. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, I was specifically called out in Mr. Keisling's comments, and I'd like an opportunity to address that if I might. Mr. Keisling, if you feel offended by anything that I said, I apologize. Perhaps I didn't word it correctly. My questions were to get to the matter of who owned the property, because none of that was revealed in any of the things that were discussed in my presence. And so, being a title abstractor, knowing a lot of what goes on in real estate in Beaufort County, I was curious why that was. And quite frankly, I was wondering if there was some attempt to hide who owned the property. And I thought it needed, since it was not discussed, it needed to be revealed and brought to the public's attention that you owned part of the property and were trying to get Beaufort County to buy it from you. That was never disclosed. And so if you were insulted by my questions, I'm really sorry. I truly am sorry that you were offended by me trying to get to the truth, Billy. Thank you very much and have a good day.
Is there anyone else who wishes to make a public comment before we close the public comment section? Seeing none, any matter to come before council before we adjourn?
Just want to follow up on some of the comments Brian just made. I had reservation about the issue that we were just talking about, and I do support the Reconstruction era. I support things that we're trying to do to promote that as far as tourism is concerned. I just had reservation, and I still have reservation because I don't know enough information about this project, and that's my reservation at this time. I just don't know enough about it. As far as the community is concerned, I think, and I have a lot of faith in Beaufort County. I'm not ignorant to the fact that racism doesn't exist. I do know that, but I think the spirit and the heart of people in Beaufort is really an example of what we can do in a country. It's right here. And so with that in mind, I will do whatever I can to support the Reconstruction era. But I just had a lot of reservation about and not having enough information about this project going forward. That's it. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, just to address it, remember that the vote today was about moving the money. It's not necessarily the project itself. This is about moving, on our part, moving the tax money over to a different project. It's not that it's not a good idea. It's not that it's a bad idea. I mean, I don't live there. I couldn't tell you what that community is like on a day-to-day basis because of that. But the point of it is, if we are going to do a community outreach, if you're going to do a community center, which it's not a secret, I'm pushing for one on Pinckney Island. Like I've been public about that. Then I think that's the way we need to take it. It needs to be done with the homeowners around it. It needs to be done with the community around it. Not saying this can't be successful one day. I don't have the answers, but just remember that the vote today was about the aid tax dollars. Not to say that we don't want to push forward preserving our history, not to say that we don't want to continue to educate our youth. That's not it. There's different ways around that. You can say that this is the only day that this can be used for school buses or anything like that. There's so many different variables and solutions that you can come together on. So I just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Okay. No further action. We stand adjourned. Thank you.